What is a traditional woman? I get asked that question all the time because I use this term all the time as well. And most of you American and European men just forgot at this point, and those of you who are younger don't even know what it is. So I think it's time for a refresher slash education course on what that amazing elusive creature is that is a traditional woman. Now, by the way, back in the day, we used to call them women. And I do have to admit that when I moved here to Southeast Asia, to Thailand, where I live now, over 2 years ago, I kind of had a few reminders, as I started going out with Thai women, and I was like, oh, huh, I remember that. I remember being treated well. I remember all those things. So let me give you a pretty decent definition. And by the way, welcome to my live stream. My name is Alex, and I am a real passport bro, as I would prefer to say, because there are a lot of passport bros who are not, who are just a bunch of guys who come here and they're still the same losers as they were in wherever they came from, and they get these girls who are ready to take their money and they make videos with them, and then they think they're passport bros. They're not. Men like me who actually come here with good intentions to meet the traditional women, and at the very least to have options, as you know, of traditional women. Do I always go out with like 100% traditional women? No. Sometimes I want to have a casual relationship, and those are not always very traditional, but we have options here. As a matter of fact, I can easily argue that men here who have options between, Thai and Southeast Asian women, and a few Western women who either visit or come to live here, 99.9999% of us pick the Thai women. But I digress. Now, before I get into it, let me just, because people also rightfully say that, hey, well, there's no 100% definition of what a traditional woman is. Or, well, you said you're looking for a traditional woman, but, you don't want a virgin, which I don't. Well, that's not very traditional. So let's set some kind of ground rules, right? Because the definition is kind of like any definition. There are some things that absolutely must have, and some things are kind of flexible, I would say. So let's look at this. Like, what is this, right? You would say it's a banana. You would be right. Well, what about this? This is also a banana, right? Even though the actual outer layer that makes it yellow and, it makes it a banana really is completely gone. Now, if I would ask you, look, what's on top of this ice cream? Now, you would also say banana, even though this is not even a whole banana, and it's cut and it doesn't have a peel, right? More than this, if I ask you, what is this kitten's playing with? You would also say it's a banana because, you can see it's a plush toy, but it's in the shape of a banana. So we would still say it's a banana, right? But, there are some ground rules also. For example, this is not a banana. It's not shaped like a banana. It's not a color of a banana. I cannot eat it. And I also understand this is not a toy banana. So I just wanted to be very careful about, what a definition is. So I'm going to give you a list of things what a traditional woman is. Much more complicated creature than a banana. So I'm going to give you a front warning right away. But nevertheless, let's get through, most of these items, and then you will see what a traditional woman is. By the way, also I want to say that a lot of us, come here to Southeast Asia. It's not just to date traditional women, right? Like I said, we don't always want to. It's to get the fuck away from the modern women. So when a lot of times when we say traditional women, we kind of mean like not the modern feminist, women that we can't stand. So that also is sometimes, a pretty good definition. And of course, another one would be, and this is another simplified one, is, what women used to be 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, right? Okay, so first of all, what a traditional woman needs to have is she needs to understand, I was going to say believe, but really understand gender roles. right? None of that 50-50, men are equal to women, like when it comes to like cultural stuff, like maybe rights and equal pay or whatever, like you may have an argument. But these women understand that men and women are different, and within the context of a family, of a couple, when men and women are not the same, and we have different roles. The more traditional roles, of course, is that man is a provider, woman is a caretaker. Again, there are variations of that, but nevertheless, this is just a good old-fashioned example of gender roles. And a traditional woman would recognize that she has a different role than a man in a family. So none of the bullshit of like you do the laundry today and I do the laundry tomorrow and so forth, and additions and stuff like that. No, household chores belong to a traditional woman. But on the other hand, you as a man who wants a traditional woman better step up and be a traditional man, which means you have to provide at the very least for the family and provide well. You have to make good decisions for the family. You have to treat your wife well, and many, many other things. Because men just think, a lot of men thinks, well, I got two balls, so I'm a man. Give me a traditional woman. Come on, bring it over here. No, you have to be qualified, right? Because we're going to go over some other things on this list, and you're not always qualified to receive these benefits from a traditional woman because you're not a traditional man, or you're just not qualified to be someone that a traditional woman would want. So there's a lot of self-improvement to do for a lot of you guys. So you can't just want a traditional woman or even move to a country with traditional women, because these traditional women still have boundaries and still have their own list of things that they're looking for in a man. That's why a lot of guys who come here to Southeast Asia, to Thailand, they end up with the worst, absolutely worst type of Thai women or Filipino women or whatever, because they were losers there. They don't want to become, when they continue being losers here. And there are plenty of women who will take advantage of losers right here in Thailand. We have plenty of those women. That's not that hard to take money from a simp and then attention and many other things. So this is very important to sort of, remember that you need to also play your role, because if she recognizes the gender roles, well, you better play yours. The second one is kind of, you would think, simple, right? But it is respect for men. This is not something that, we kind of had to have on the list 10 or 20 years ago, and you've seen a lot of this on TV, right? On The View, like, one of my first videos on this channel was about the members of The View who were just bashing men. They were just saying how useless men are, even though they were sitting in a studio that was built mainly by men. The electricity and maintenance and everything around them was maintained by men, mainly men. Their security, whether the local law enforcement or military, is again mainly men. And yet they're sitting there bashing men, and it's perfectly fine. National television, no problem, no boycotts, none of that stuff, none of the sexism, none of that, right? So a traditional woman has a basic respect for a man, any man, because she knows that men is what makes the society and the civilization go around. This is what mainly men build. This is what mainly men maintain. So basic respect for a man, and again, not just in a society, but as a head of a household that they picked. This is another thing that a lot of modern women cannot wrap their heads around, is that, listen, the man that you're with is, your choice. This is the man that you chose. So, if you think that it's a man who doesn't deserve your respect, then you should not have chose him. Bad modern women, bad choices. So, so a lot of times women who understand how to respect strong, positive men usually have a strong, positive male figure in their lives, or at least had at some point. Usually that role is filled by their father. Not always, sometimes grandfather, sometimes a mentor, sometimes a brother, and so forth. But at some point, and hopefully even currently, a traditional woman understands and knows what a good, strong man is and why that is a good thing, right? This is why dating women with tattoos just doesn't work for men like me, because usually the tattoos, among many other things that are red flags and should be deal breakers for dating, but for most of the things, it's because they've never had a positive strong male figure in their lives, because they've been brought up by either single mothers or in families with a simp father, which is kind of the same thing, right? So not only they had a positive strong positive male figure absent in their lives, some of these women have a simp father that gives them a very much a wrong idea of what a positive male figure should be in their lives. And that's, because any good father, right, who's strong positive, would never want his precious little girl to get all inked up or even a little bit inked up. So every girl knows that their father would not improve. And usually their fathers in their 50s, 60s, and 70s. And I'm now part of that generation. And no, we don't want our little girls all inked up. And a woman, a girl, young woman who has respect for her father would never do that to him. I'll give you a good example. I actually, one of the last girls that I dated in America, she was Haitian, right? And I remember that I told her, it's like, so I personally, and I know this is not good, I love belly rings, right? So, and I know, I mean, I started liking them like 20 years ago, but now they're indication of not always good behavior. But at that time, it was several years ago, I said, would you like to put a belly ring in? And she said, no, my father would never approve. And I said, your father is on the other side of this country and you visit him once a year for like 3 days. You don't have to show your belly to your father, dress just covered up. She said, yeah, it's not about that. I just would not never do something my father would not approve, whether or not he sees it or not. And I went, that's a quality woman, right? It's not about, can I hide it from my father? It's like, listen, I know my father believes this is not good for me. And whether or not he ever finds out, he could be dead. And I would not do that. So the same thing with tattoos. When a girl has tattoos, it's usually an indication she just doesn't have usually a strong father figure. And, it is a problem. It is definitely a problem, because if she doesn't know how to respect a strong man, she will never respect you if you are a strong man looking for a traditional woman. So let me move on to another thing, which again, usually I would say this is common sense, but somehow again, a lot of you guys, especially younger guys, have no idea. But a traditional woman is feminine. And I don't just mean, she, you know, has long hair and lipstick and in a long skirt. Yes, those things should be there. But she talks femininely, right? Like when I go out here to some areas where we have some tourists, and I even hear how Western women talk, or even Thai women who got Westernized, like my ears are bleeding already, because I'm just so used to these, very soft spoken Thai women, that speak like, I like to say that like a carton of kittens is sleeping on their tongues and they don't want to wake them up. So feminine is not just outside, it's also the behavior. And a lot of, I would argue that majority of especially single Western women have no idea. And again, tattoos are not feminine. Red blue hair is not feminine. Muscles is not feminine. You know a lot of times the Western women just don't even know how to be feminine. And this is a must have. This is a must have in a traditional woman. She has to behave in a feminine way. She has to look feminine. And that is the key. Next one is, again, women hate the next one, but a traditional woman is submissive. Now, let me also explain this term, because even feminists don't really, I think, understand that term. A submissive woman is somebody who chose a man to submit to, because she chose a man who she believes is smarter than her, has more experience than her. She has determined that he has good decision making process, and he has the best interest of the family in mind when he makes those decisions. So for example, when I meet women, so so that I can attract traditional women and sort of tickle them fancy, a lot of times I talk about my past decisions in my life. And I mentioned that if I when I look back at my life, I'm almost 50 years old, I can't think of one bad disastrous decision that I've made for myself, and I can list all of the top decisions that were good. And I also understand, and this is very important again for you guys who just think that you have two balls and then you're going to show up here and traditional women are going to be attracted to you. No, you have to understand how to consider the priorities and needs of your family, your girlfriend, your wife, and your children, an equal level or sometimes even above yours, right? So if a girl, submissive girl, a lot of times would let her husband or boyfriend pick her outfit for when you're going out, right? And this is not where you can say, oh, I want you to look hot and why don't you wear that dress? No, for example, if she is on her period, do not make her wear a tight dress. She's going to not feel comfortable in it, and it's going to ruin her evening a lot of times, right? So you have to take that in consideration. It's not about what you want to see her in, right? It's what's appropriate for the occasion. It is, how she represents herself and you and your family. And of course, it's something that she is or isn't comfortable in, you know, for the evening or for the day. So you have to be considerate and make good decisions, not for yourself, but also for your significant other. And if you have children, then for your children. So this is very important. And of course, once a girl submits to you, then of course you're the head of the household. Now you have the pressure and in a very important role, gender role, to make good decisions for yourself, for her, for the children, and for the family in general, and not just for the immediate future, but for the future. And those are not easy. Those are not easy. So this is why a lot of times, traditional women pick older men. This is why I, who almost 50 years old, a lot of times get matched and have a lot of interest in women in their 20s. And I've never thought about being a guy who dates girls 20, 25 years younger than him. I actually don't care about the age. I would date a girl in her 40s if, she looks good and she's a good match. But it is a lot of times younger women who are traditional women who are looking for an older man because they see the experience and they know they can see the track record. You can't hide your track record, right? You can see by what you do for a living, how you dress, what your apartment or house looks like, right? All of these are reflections of what decisions you made for yourself over the last many decades, and it's not possible to hide, right? So this is why a lot of young women who are traditional are looking for an older man, and that is not uncommon here in Southeast Asia, in South America, and I was just in Africa, so it's not that. I mean, one of the best matches that I had in Africa as I tried to date while I was there was a girl who was 20. I'm actually just talked to her about an hour ago too. She's wonderful. We happen not to be a perfect match because she also wants children and I don't. But I'm 48 and she's 20. And honestly, if it wasn't for that, I would have probably invited her to come back to Thailand with me, right? So, and she's 20. So this is very important. Choosing a woman who is submissive, but also understands who she's submitting herself to and has some boundaries of her own. Number 6 is a physical appearance, and I think this also goes into feminine part, right? Obviously, you want a girl who appears feminine, but at the same time, there's way more to it than that because a woman represents you at all times. Of course, when she's on your arm, she absolutely represents you. But she also represents, and I would even argue even more, when you are not around. When she's in a gym, when she's in a grocery store, when she is at work, when she's out with friends or whatever. Because when somebody looks at her, and let's say she's wearing a skimpy clothes and she's partying until 2 o'clock in the morning, drinking and flirting with a bunch of dudes at the club, that is a reflection on you, even more than her. right? So some women just always dress sexy, and if you're a single girl, it might be tolerable, in America. But if she is taken, then it essentially makes people look at you as, you're probably a simp if you're allowing this type of disrespect, that your girl is walking around trying to attract other men, trying to kind of showcase her goods when you're not even around. That is going to be a reflection on you. As a matter of fact, I know myself, and I know some many other guys who wouldn't do business and sometimes be friends with some men who allow blunt disrespect from their significant others, especially wives, because it goes straight to your character, right? What you tolerate from your significant other really, really shows your true colors. So when a woman dresses a certain way, and especially when you're not around, it definitely tells you, you know, whether or not she is a wife material. Um, I skipped one on my list here, but it's quite obvious thing, but nothing is obvious anymore. Supportive, right? And yes, both partners need to be supportive, but not equally, right? For example, she has to be supportive of your career. Absolutely, right? Because your gender role is to be a provider, and your career is what provides for both of you, for your children, for everyone's future. Even when you die, you need to be able to provide for her and your children for the rest of their lives, out of your grave. So your career is very important because that's how you make money, that's how you provide for them. And so she has to be supportive, and there will be good times and bad times, as you guys probably know, that careers are tough, and even regular jobs are tough because there's stress, there's ups and downs, sometimes unemployment, sometimes business failure, sometimes low income, and you have to get through all of that, and your woman needs to be there to support you. Now, do you need to support her in her career? No, because, and we'll go over this in a second, she shouldn't have one, and I'll explain why in a second. But for your career, she has to be supportive. She has to be supportive in everything that you do. She has to be your true big fan and always stand by you, even in bad times. So support from her is important. Now, do you need to support her? Yes, you should support her in many other different ways. You should support her in her health, right? You want her to be healthy. If she wants to do something, to join some sort of a diet or program at the gym, or then you should absolutely support her. Any type of health issues, any type of mental health issues, of course you should be supportive as a man as well. So, but a traditional woman is supportive of her men's career and pretty much everything. Now, unless it's alcoholism, right? She should not be supportive of that. She should be supportive of your recovery. um, Now, next one is, for example, not on my list, but on a lot of your lists. So, of course, I want to mention that she needs to be a good mother. It's very important, right? A traditional woman should be a good mother. And of course, then we can probably do another video of what a good mother is. I'm not the one who actually make that video because like I said, I not having not having children is literally my number one best decision that I've ever made for myself, and I'm very clear with all of the women who I date, that I don't want children in the future. Um, but a lot of men do, and she needs to be a good mother material. And that is a long list, of course, there as well. But she should be good with kids that she does have in her life, or maybe nephews and nieces and your friends' kids and her friends' kids and stuff like that. It's quite obvious she needs to love kids. But also being a good mother is knowing how to enforce what you, the father of the child, wants, right? Because a lot of times you see a father would say one thing, and the child runs to the mother, and mother allows something that the child does that father already said that it is not okay. Yeah, that's not a good mother. A good mother, who's also a good wife, should absolutely be in line with the parenting strategy that her and her husband agreed on, and that was carved out, and kind of straying away from that, and essentially allowing child to disrespect uh, his or her father's, you know, I don't want to say wishes, but guidelines, that is being a bad mother and a bad partner at the same time. um, let's move on to something I've already mentioned: job versus a career. I believe that all wives should have a job unless they literally just gave birth to a child. um, Even if you're providing, if you're a multi-millionaire and even you don't have to work, she needs to work. And I made a video about this, so I'll just kind of quickly mention why. You want your significant other to live in reality and be a somewhat useful member of this society. She needs to understand small things like money, for example. How can she appreciate how well you provide for her if she doesn't know what it's like to make a dollar? She, and it's not like, oh yeah, she had a job back in high school. No, she needs to know what, like, she needs to have muscle memory of the last week of what it's like to make a dollar and how much more you're making than her, and only then she can appreciate you as a provider. She needs to know what it's like to be on time. She needs to know what it's like to be stuck in traffic and not be frustrated. She needs to know what it's like to have coworkers or customers or a boss that she may not want to get along, she's not getting along with, or she does not necessarily like, but just has to get along with. Figure out, these are the very important skills that she would bring back into the family, right? How to resolve possible conflicts, how to be kind and good to other people, and how to get along. If she doesn't have and consistently keep up with those skills out about in the real world, which usually any job provides, how can you expect her to do that? And also, she just needs to fucking do shit. You know what I mean? There's never enough time around around the house. And it's usually when someone's rich, like for example, I always had a housekeeper and somebody in the service who does the laundry. Like I always like to go out to eat, so the food is prepared and served for me. A girl who is dating me doesn't really have to do a lot of those chores. So that's why she can't just sit around her house and do nothing. She needs to be part of the real world. So she needs to have a job. Now, the difference between the job and the career, of course, is very important. Career is something that essentially becomes number one for a woman a lot of times above her family, because you can run both. But most importantly, in order for a woman, most of the time, to have a career, she has to have a lot of qualities that absolutely will disqualify her as a traditional woman, right? She has to be a go-getter. She has to be disagreeable. She has to be combative. She has to, just do this no matter what attitude. She has to put in extra hours. She has to climb the corporate ladder. There's a lot of things that a career woman has to do that literally is the opposite of what she has to do as a traditional woman in a family. And 99% of women are not able to flip that switch. And sometimes it's not even possible, right? If you're a career woman and you have a boss and the boss says, listen, we got to get that account and you have to work through the weekend, you're going to work through the weekend, right? And cancel the plans with your husband and with your kids, but most importantly with your husband. And that's not acceptable. So a career woman is just not a traditional woman. But I encourage you to absolutely require that your significant other has a job, regardless of how much money you make, because there's another reason for that as well. You don't want to always guess whether or not your wife or your girlfriend is with you for the money. And I don't mean for the Mercedes or a Louis Vuitton purse. I mean, you don't ever want to be in a position where you don't know if your wife wants to leave you, but can't, because she can't go and get her own place and her own furniture and her own car because she doesn't have a job. I know it might sound strange, but listen carefully. You want your woman to leave you, have an opportunity to leave you if she does no longer want you. Because as a man, you should never ever should have and want a woman in your life who doesn't want you anymore. So if she decides she wants to leave, she should leave immediately, and you should be freed up from that relationship, so you can hopefully recover and find the next one. But how many times these women stay with this man, and again, they rarely stay for the Mercedes. They a lot of times stay for just shelter and food because they cannot provide for themselves. And you want to make sure that your wife has a job So if at any point in time she wants to leave, she can, because she can provide for herself. Can she provide for herself as well as you have? No. But when a woman wants to leave, she will most likely settle for, a studio and a used Nissan Leaf. Um, Go electric cars, by the way. That's how I made my YouTube career, my electric cars. So two more. Number 9, social media consumption and participation. And I already touched on the subject a little bit earlier. When you see these passport bros saying, yeah, I'm in Thailand or Philippines and this is my girlfriend, and she, no, no, none of us real passport bros would ever want to out essentially our significant other. We don't want to put her on blast on social media so she may get some nasty comments and put her through that. And generally speaking, why would you want to? And when you meet a girl that you might consider, dating, seriously dating, you want to make sure that she is not on. If she is on social media, it is only like it's limited to friends and family, and the account is private. And that she's not posting bikini pictures or some sexy pictures of her for all the world to see. That is absolutely unacceptable. This is the new drug for women. And if your significant or significant other to be is addicted to that, it is a problem, and it should be a deal breaker. And it is not a traditional women are not thirsty for attention on social media. And when I was in Bali about three months ago, and I've showed you this picture before, this is what I mean, this is a picture I took, by the way. This is not from the internet. I took this picture. And I see this all the time. I see this all the time where these guys get together with these girls who make them be their bitch photographer and take all of these provocative pictures of them. And guess what? These pictures, they're not going into the family photo. They're not going to her mom and dad. They're not going on a Christmas card. They are going on Instagram. And guess who's not going into that Instagram album? Is the guy taking the picture. The bitch photographer that this guy is. But, I see this all the time. This is going to be a disaster if it hasn't already been, because obviously this girl and many other women have this addiction for attention from other men on social media. And a traditional woman does not have that. If you ever meet a girl, and like, to me, within first day of a conversation, I always ask, hey, let me see your Instagram. You have Instagram? If a girl says, I don't have Instagram, or it is private, I've instant erection. When a girl is not on social media, that is a huge green flag. And when she is, you want to see what it's all about. There are some acceptable social media presence. Sometimes she's passionate about photography and maybe she posts her photography. Maybe she just, updates her pictures with her activities on whatever, whatever, her hobbies. That's fine. But again, if there are too many selfies, if there are too many cleavages, if there are bikini pictures, none of that is acceptable. So a traditional woman would never, ever be a social media whore of any type, in any shape or form. And that brings me to the last, which is number 10 on my list. And it is something that a lot of men don't even realize that it should be on top of their list. And this is why I kind of left it for the last. A traditional woman, and the only type of a woman you want to be with is a woman who provides you with peace. Now, you probably heard it, said a lot if you kind of following the maybe red pill movement or dating coaches, but it is truly the most important thing that a woman would do for you. You can be the most beautiful, hottest girl in the world, and even all these other things that I mentioned may still click, right? Check. But if she does not provide you with peace, your life will be shit. And a lot of women don't know that either. So this is something that both genders need to learn, that a woman, specifically a traditional woman, is supposed to provide you with peace. This is where, being disagreeable is a big minus. when a woman disagrees, there are only two ways in which she should handle it. One, she should either say, listen, I disagree with my husband, but I know my husband makes good decisions for our family and for me. I'm going to default to him because he's going to end up being right. Or she can bring things up and voice her opinion in a very mild manner as a suggestion. And a good man should take that suggestion and consider it at the very least. Doesn't have to take it. He's got to consider it, right? And honestly, when a woman brings up her opinion that varies from men's in a kind manner, a lot of times it's how she brings it to his attention, um, rather than what that suggestion is. And it is extremely important. Um, when she comes home from her job that is not a career, she should know better than dump all of her shit from her day on her husband's head, who just had a much busier, much more stressful day. That's why he makes the big bucks, right? Unless this is a urgent safety or health or mental health issue, what Becky did or who looked at home in the wrong way, none of that should make it into the dinner conversation. A woman should give it. And a lot of times, we see them, these men come back, home from their long day, and the nagging starts like right as the man crosses the fucking doorway, right? Oh, you didn't do your laundry or whatever. It's your turn to do dishes or what, you know what I mean? Like immediately this man is already in hell. Where a good woman, like I'll tell you what my experiences here in Thailand is. For example, when I walked in through a door, a lot of times a girl would put my slippers in front of me, and she makes sure that she gives me a kiss and, lets me know, hey, would you like some water? Do you need anything? And then leaves me the fuck alone. Just be around, be pleasant, make sure that the house is clean. If we're having dinner, then the dinner is ready or just about to be ready, and everything's nice. And there's nothing in my ear, and nothing but support. And then, of course, once the man kind of, settles down and everything, then the life can start. But a lot of women don't even understand it. A lot of women don't understand that their number one role and really the way to keep a man is to provide him with peace. I see mostly two types of foreigners here in Thailand who date Thai women. Now, first of all, I already mentioned it in my video yesterday. I dedicated a whole live stream yesterday to the fact that, when women here in Southeast Asia have a choice between Western women, we still have here a westernized Thai women, and actual like traditional Thai women, it's pretty much all about traditional Thai women. And why and so there's two types of that of men that I see ugly men with beautiful women, and we all pretty much know how that's done. Anybody can do that, especially in Southeast Asia, no problem, right? But I also see pretty good looking young men in shape, obviously make decent money, especially here. It's not that hard to be a good provider, and yet they are with most basic and sometimes just ugly girls. And at first I was like, wait, what is happening? Like, what, but then the answer is, this is the girl who provides him with peace. She may not be, stunningly gorgeous. And a lot of times they are cute and beautiful to their eyes, to their men's eyes. But a lot of times it's because they check all these boxes, right? And especially the box of providing him with peace. A man, including myself, will take an average looking girl who will check all these boxes and will give him peace, than to take a beautiful hottie who will be combative, and on and on and on and on, and will never give him peace. And this is why I see here where men do have choices, them still not necessarily going with the most beautiful Thai women here and the most beautiful Southeast Asian women here. A lot of times they go for women who give them peace. And this is the basic list of a traditional woman. A lot of times when I, talk about this list, modern women and simps, usually Western simps, they'll say, oh, so you want a slave, right? And that tells me that they understood nothing what I said. If you watch this video and you think, oh, this guy wants a slave, you're just not smart enough to watch my videos, and definitely not this one. Don't forget that these traditional women, they want to be in a position of where they are submitting to a man because their lives are easy. When you submit to a good man, your life is easy. Everything's taken care of. The good decisions are made. The money is coming in. The vacations, the good life, the meals, the good neighborhood, the house, the car, all of that just magically appears in front of you. And all you have to do is look pretty and be nice. The easiest job in the world. The easiest job in the world. So these women want to be in a position of what feminism would call slaves, which is complete fucking bullshit, because submission is an act of volunteering. It's a volunteer action, right? A woman says, I choose this man and I choose to submit to him with these boundaries, right? And then man has to start working on this, because it's a lot of fucking job to be the head of a household and a good provider and a good man in this woman's and her children's life. So this is the list. I talk more about it in my course. My course is the millionmanproject.com. It is about how you can move from a Western country like America to another country of your choice when you would have actual dating choices, and real any choice. Like, I believe if you're a man who lives in America, you just don't have any fucking choices right now. If you want a good wife, I mean, first of all, I don't think you should be getting married in America, no matter who you find. But the bottom line is, if you're a single guy right now, there's nothing there for you. If you want to have a real relationship, get the fuck out. That's your only choice. The only other two choices is to just stop dating. Um, I mean, if you feel like paying for your most basic needs, you can do that. But just as far as real dating, just stop. Um, and or you can either become or continue being a simp, where you're just a pathetic pushover, and that's the only way for you to get any women who will sooner or later will leave you, because women, at the end of the day, it's easy to get a simp, right? It's easy life at first, but when it comes down to building a family and all those important things, these women realize that they can't be with simps, which most American and European men are, unfortunately. And they come here. I see them here all the time. They come here and they continue to simp, and then they end up with exactly the same type of women here, and then they cheat on them. The women do. Divorce them, take their money, all that kinds of bullshit. So, and I never feel sorry for them, because it's just so obvious that if you don't improve yourself, if you don't have some self-respect and self-esteem, don't expect different results from when you were in a shithole that is, American dating scene, or European or British dating scene, or Australian dating scene. And as I recently found out, Kenyan even dating scene. So I hope this was educational, not only for men and for very few random women who watch my channel, because this is the only way to have a relationship. And this is why I suggest that all of you guys, my whole channel is called the Million Man Project. The project is to move 1 million of you, hopefully. I know it's a high goal, from America and Western countries into more family-oriented countries. And it is not a simple task. This is why I have this full course at the here you go, the millionmanproject.com. I put 3 months of my full-time work into this project, because it is very, very difficult. And a lot of men come here and they don't do, and even couples come here and they completely fuck up their lives from the very beginning. They don't know what kind of visas to get. They don't understand how to wind down their life in America or other countries. They don't understand how to build the new life here. They don't learn the language, because they think, oh, everybody speaks English in my neighborhood, and they end up with, a not that much better of a life here than they did before. So that's why I have my course. And that's why people who take my course are able to, take their time, make sure that they come here ready, not just jump on a plane and off we go. They actually prepare. For me, it took over a year to prepare to come here, but I didn't really need a couple of things that a lot of people do need. Like, I didn't need to become a man who demands respect, who has self-respect, who knows what traditional women are, but I also already had an online job, so I didn't really need to go and create that, because that's what you need. You need an online job in order to move. So all of that is at themillionmanproject.com. Let me know if you have any questions. I know there will be any. There will be some, and I people ask me follow-up questions on this all the time, because truly a lot of young guys just don't know this. They just don't. So a quick shout out to Nick, who said hi in the comment section here in this live stream. Good to see you, Nick. And Venice Beach, love Venice Beach in California. By the way, I love California. I miss California, but I miss California from 20 years ago. But Venice Beach is definitely a little heaven. I'm a little jealous, Nick, but I will survive. We have our own beaches here in Thailand, and they are just as beautiful. As a matter of fact, I'm waiting for the rainy weather to end here in there's a beautiful paradise island of Koh Samet near where I live in Bangkok. It takes about 3 hours by car. And when you get on that island, my goodness, sometimes you come to any of those beaches and you go like, is this AI generated, or am I actually in this reality, right? In addition to amazing Thai people around, and in addition to amazing weather, in addition to amazing food, and just all of that stuff. So I miss a lot of things about America, but I also absolutely love where I'm at now. And feel free to ask questions about that as well. So, all right. Thank you for watching, and I will see you next time.